Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. And be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. Over the weekend, we saw the Saints continuing to shuffle the deck as they are in earnest trying to get within salary cap considerations. So they restructured both Demario Davis and Cam Jordan's contracts. As it stands right now, and this is Monday at 4:18 p.m., as it stands right now, the New Orleans Saints are still $43.9 million over the cap. So they've done a tremendous amount of work, considering they were roughly $100 million over the cap. Now with the moves they've made with restructuring deals and Drew Brees, his impending retirement, and different releases, the Saints are $43.9 million over the cap still. So a lot of work to do. And part of what might be coming next are trades involving Latavius Murray and Emmanuel Sanders. So Albert Breer of the MMQB was the first to report that the Saints are shopping the two veteran offensive players. So Murray has $2.4 million against the cap should he be traded. And for Sanders, if they're able to trade him, it would save the Saints $6 million against the cap. If he's released, it would save them $4 million against the cap. So two veteran offensive players here that the Saints are trying to unload to see if they can recoup some value with assets, but also get salary cap considerations. This reminds me of the Darren Sproles situation. And a hat tip to Mike Detillier, who I think might have mentioned this several weeks ago, that this could end up being something similar. And if you remember what happened when the Saints traded Darren Sproles to Philly, Sean Payton, being from the Bill Parcells school, has always been of the mind that you'd rather move on from a player a year too soon than a year too late. And sometimes it works out very well, and sometimes it's Darren Sproles or Malcolm Jenkins, a guy that still has very productive football, and you made a mistake letting them get away. Well, the thing with Sproles is the Saints were going to move on from him and release him until they realized, man, there's a market for Darren Sproles. And so instead of giving him his unconditional release and allowing him to sign with whoever he wanted, the Saints then traded him. And that didn't sit well with Sproles because he wanted to pick his destination for obvious reasons. But the Saints ended up getting draft assets from the Eagles for Darren Sproles. This feels like a very similar situation where the Saints are trying to trade these guys, obviously to help against the cap, but also to recoup some draft assets if it's possible to do so. Now, the flip side of that is if a team wants either of those players, they could just say, well, I know you're getting rid of them, so I'll just wait till you release them, not give you anything in the draft, and then just sign them. The risk there is if there is a market, maybe the player doesn't pick your team. So if there are teams interested in either Sanders or Latavius Murray in particular, making a deal for them to not run the risk of losing them on the open market does make some sense. Financially, for New Orleans, this obviously makes sense. You're still $43.9 million over the salary cap. You have a lot of work to do to get within the cap consideration, and every cent matters. Every million matters. And here's an opportunity potentially to create as much as $8.4 million in cap space if you're able to trade these two players. The question becomes, okay, well, what does this do for the Saints on the field? That's where it's a little less clear. So let's take each player one at a time here. With respect to Emmanuel Sanders, I'm really okay with it. He is a veteran receiver who at times this year was a nice compliment, especially with Mike Thomas having the injury-riddled season he did. But with Mike Thomas having the injury-riddled season he did, Emmanuel Sanders was your leading receiver among wide receivers. Alvin Kamara was your top pass catcher with 83 catches. Sanders had 61 for 726. Still very productive. But when you look beyond, Traquan Smith with 34, Marquez Callaway with 21, Deontay Harris with 20 in just 9 games, by the way. Lil Jordan Humphrey got some playing time, as did Juwan Johnson, Austin Carr. The Saints delved deep into the roster to get guys that could go out there and function within this offense, and it worked. Time and again, they found guys that stepped up and made plays. And Emmanuel Sanders had one gigantic game this season for the New Orleans Saints. Maybe his most famous moment was getting his catch bonus at the end of the season, sort of celebrating on the field right as soon as he caught the ball in Week 17. But for Sanders, his big game was the game against the Chargers on Monday Night Football, where he had 12 receptions for 122 yards. I mean, he had his one big breakout game then, but was pretty consistent throughout the year. I have just seen Sean Payton's offense throughout the years find that guy. And I know we've waited for years for Traquan Smith to emerge and be that guy, but with a healthy Michael Thomas next year, assuming he is healthy for the full 17-game schedule, the onus is far less on your number 2 guy to be the massively productive guy, especially when you know you're going to throw the ball to Alvin Kamara as much as you do. So I don't need Emmanuel Sanders to catch 61 balls next year. I'm okay if Traquan Smith catches 40 and Deontay Harris catches 30 and you make up that production. Maybe you draft a wide receiver. Maybe you go into free agency and sign a more veteran wide receiver. But we have seen time and again Sean Payton do this. Lean on undrafted rookie free agents, undrafted players, guys he scrapes off the proverbial scrap heap and makes them really good players. I mean, Austin Carr has continued to hang around this roster for a very long time. I'll remind you also that you have Tai Montgomery, who's the other part of this equation. The Saints signed Tai Montgomery a year ago, and I loved the move. He is a versatile player that can play both receiver and running back. He can also return punts and kicks, and the Saints needed him to do all of that, but he did battle injuries this year, which limited his time on the field. Not only does he give you another option at receiver, but he also gives you potentially that option at running back if you trade Latavius Murray. Now,
Murray, present.
Latavius Murray has been a very consistent player. In 2 years with the Saints, he has had the exact same number of carries each of his 2 years in New Orleans. He had 146 attempts in 2019 for 637 yards. He had 146 attempts in 2020 for 656 yards. The same number of attempts, 19 yards different. That's the model of consistency. You know exactly what you're getting from Latavius Murray when you turn around and hand him the football. And the Saints have always been better with the second back, so as that one guy, namely Alvin Kamara, doesn't shoulder the entire burden of being your bell cow. If Latavius Murray isn't back next year,
Murray, present,
you can divvy up those duties. Tai Montgomery could be part of that answer. Taysom Hill, oddly enough, could be part of that answer as a ball carrier. Not necessarily just a running back, but as a ball carrier. Dwayne Washington is a free agent. Tony Jones is there as well. But before you roll your eyes, we've seen Sean Payton go down that road before with guys like Chris Ivory throughout the years. Guys who we just didn't think much of, who emerged and became Travaris Cadet, key players offensively and in special teams. What's to say that he couldn't identify one scouting and go get the next guy that's on a first-year rookie deal? If you need to be cost efficient, it just puts more onus on your scouting department to make sure that the guys that you do have, the guys that are on your roster, are able to fill those gaps and maximize production offensively. And the other wild card is, what if Russell Wilson's your quarterback? If Russell Wilson is your quarterback, that is going to make every receiver better, and he even becomes a factor in the running game as well. So you don't need necessarily the luxury of a second big bell cow back. I would love to have Sanders and Latavius Murray back in 2020.
Murray, present.
2021, excuse me. But the Saints can function without both of them offensively. And they may need to. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.